Hare Krishna, Dhanatpranam Alvarishya Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining this Friday satsang. So we'll start with wonderful kirtan by Kanchan Mataji and Mukunda Prabhu. Let me make you spotlight. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vishnupadaya Prabhu Nityananda Oh, Bhakta
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna Hare Hare,
Rama
Hare
Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama
Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama
Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Ram, Hare Ram,
Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare
Nitai Gautamahanne.
Hari Hari Bol.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hey. Thank you very much. Kanchan Mataji and Mukunda Prabhu ki. Jai. Wonderful Kirtan. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Ajit Krishna Prabhu, Dandat Pranam, all Guru Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Hare Brahma, Hare Prabhupada, Jai.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna Vadanvatana,
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dham Pranam, Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Prabhuji Dandot Pranam, Sarvashti Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Jai Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna ji, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, welcome back.
Thank you ji.
We are happy that Tyagu Prabhu and Sima Prabhu has joined today.
Yeah.
Yeah, after a long time.
It's going to be a new chapter from today onward.
We're actually starting chapter 5, so that is a new chapter.
Okay ji.
Hare Krishna, Siman Prabhu. Good.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Dham Pranam, good to see you too, Prabhu. All right. Okay, so I think we'll move ahead with chapter 5 today. Unless somebody had any thoughts to share on chapter 4, any questions or anything, otherwise we can just move forward.
Yeah, I think last week we did a summarization of the whole chapter.
Yeah. So, all right. So should we move forward then?
Yes, Prabhu, I think so.
Okay, then we'll just start with the invocation prayers and then we can start with the reading, etc. So,
Prabhuji, is it possible just to give a summary of the entire 4th chapter? Maybe on a
sure.
very high level.
Okay. We'll just start with the invocation prayer and then we can start. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gyanjana Chalakaya Chakshur Unmenitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakanamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadagamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namastute Tapta Kanchan Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. All right, so chapter 4 on Transcendental Knowledge. We completed that last time, and basically the quick 2-minute summary of that chapter is that, as in verse 42, 442, the last verse of chapter 4, Krishna says to Arjun that therefore the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharat, stand and fight. So Krishna's basically in chapter 4, Krishna instructs Arjun that transcendental knowledge, knowledge about spirituality, knowledge about spiritual topics, knowledge about how we can make advancement in spiritual life and raise ourselves above our material existence. That is called transcendental knowledge. Transcendental means to be above. So transcendental, over here, the reference or the context is being above material existence. So if we don't limit ourselves to just our material surroundings, just our material experiences and existence and duties, but we think deeper and try to understand what is our spiritual reality, which is the real reality, then the pursuit of that knowledge is called transcendental knowledge. And there are many different levels of transcendental knowledge, of course, which we discussed. And in this chapter, Krishna gives a few, or he gives us a little bit of the gradation. You know, there is Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga, and highest, he says, is Bhakti Yoga. That is the highest level of transcendental knowledge. And so then Arjun, of course, had many doubts. And so Krishna says that once you have knowledge about spiritual topics, all your doubts will be removed. And when those doubts are removed, then in spiritual knowledge, you stand up and fight. So Krishna is actually telling him to fight based on spiritual knowledge. So this is a good segue into chapter 5. So if somebody would like to read the first verse, chapter 5, verse 1.
Is Prajna Mataji there?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, yes, there. Now, would you please go ahead?
Chapter 5, Karma Yoga, text
Yes.
1. Arjuna Yuvacha
Arjuna Uvacha
Sanyasam Karmanam Krishna
Sanyasam
Karmanam Krishna
Punaryogam Cha Samsashi
Punaryogam Samsasi
Yachirya Yatayorkekam
Shreya Ekam
Tanme Brushichu Nishchitam. Translation G. Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all, you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Text 2.
Prabhuji, Prajna is available.
Yes, please go, Mataji, Prajna Mataji.
Shri Bhagavanu Vacha
Shri Brahma
Sanyasa Karma Yogascha
Sanyasa
Karma Yogascha
Nishaya Sakara Bhubo Tayostu Karma Sanyasat
Yostu Karma Sanyasa
Karma Yogo Vishishyate.
Karma
Yogo
Translation. The personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare Krishna.
Narasimha Prabhu want to do?
Yes, Prabhuji. Gyeya sa nitya sannyasi yo na dveshte na kankshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities, is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated. O mighty armed Arjuna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu.
You want to
Hare
continue
Krishna.
or you want to? Ajita, Prabhu?
Yeah, text one, if anybody else wants to read.
Arjuna Uvacha
Arjuna Vacha
Vacha
Nyasam Karmanam Krishna
Sanyasam Karmanam Krishna
Krishna
Yogam Cha Samshasi
Purnar Yogam
Yogam Cha Samshasi
Yachreya Yetayorekam
Yajya Etayorekam
Tanme Bruhi Sunischitam.
Tanme Brove
Sunishchitam.
Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and then again, you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?
Hare Krishna. Anybody else?
Text
Yes,
number
Prabhu.
Sri Bhagavan Vacha
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Sanyasa Karma Yogascha
Anyaha Karma Yogascha
Nisreyaskara Bhuva
Nishcheyasa Kara Ubhau
Tayostu Karma Sanyasat
Tayostu
Karma Sannyasa
Karma Yogo Visisate.
Karma Yogo
Vishishyate.
And the translation by His Divine Grace of Acharna Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and the work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Ganesh Prabhu, you want to try?
ज्ञेयसा नित्य सन्यासी
Neya Sanitya Sannyasi
यो न द्वेषी न कांक्षति
Yo na dveshati na kamshati
निर्द्वन्द्वो हि महाबाहो
Nirdvandavo mahabaho
सुखं बन्धात् प्रमुच्यते.
Sukham bandhat pramuchyate.
Translation all goes to Srila Prabhupada. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated. O mighty armed Arjuna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. And of course, it's good to see you too, Jai Ganesh Prabhu, after a few weeks. All right. Anybody else? So I think we can start with the discussion maybe.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so chapter 5 again, action in Krishna consciousness or Karma Yoga. So as we had mentioned earlier too, Karma Yoga is a very important topic. And this is the only topic where 2 chapters have been dedicated to this. Chapter 3 and chapter 5, they're both dedicated to Karma Yoga. So karma obviously is very, very important. We are all performing karma. We all perform actions. We all perform what we think are our duties. And so it's very important to understand what kind of action is pleasing to the Lord and what kind of action should be avoided. Because through the process of acting for the pleasure of the Lord, we can actually liberate ourselves. It's funny, like I was just hearing, so America stands for liberty, right? This big emblem of the country is the Statue of Liberty in New York. You know, people say, well, we believe in liberty. Liberty is good, but liberty from what? If we think about the true meaning of liberation, according to the Shastra, liberation means being free from the clutches of Maya, being free from the distractions and the baits of Maya, and instead engaging all of our activities in the service of the Lord for the pleasure of the Lord, which will then truly liberate us from this material world. See, there are so many habits that people have. If you think about it, there are people, let's take a simple example. Some people who smoke. They may say, I am an American, I am liberated, I am free. But if you think about it, is the person truly free? Every few hours, or just depending on the level of addiction, the person must smoke a cigarette. So the person is bound, actually. That person is bound by the dictates of nature, by the modes of material nature. That is what causes that urge to go smoke, even when they know that it is bad for health. So these urges are there. These urges, as we have discussed earlier, these urges are the product of the influence of the modes of material nature, Satagun, Tamagun, and Rajogun upon us. So in order to actually be liberated, we have to be, the scriptures explain that we should be able to control the dictation of the modes of nature such that whatever action we perform is pleasing to the Lord. Smoking is not pleasing to the Lord. So why perform that action? So the topic of Karma Yoga explains to us, or brings to light, how we can continue to perform our duties and at the same time achieve liberation. So Arjun's question in text 1 is very interesting. It actually is a follow-up of the last verse that we read, 442. Would somebody just like to read 442, just the English translation of 442? Really quickly, 442 English translation.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I'll do that. Hare Krishna.
Right.
Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapons of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight.
Stand and fight. So in 442, Krishna is telling Arjun, please stand and fight. So what does Arjun ask him in the next verse? Just the English part. Anybody? You're on mute.
Sorry. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?"
Yeah. So he's thinking that if I perform action, I will be entangled. And if I renounce action, then I'll be free. Arjun wants to be free from sinful reaction. He's trying to balance his jati dharma and his kula dharma. There are two dharmas here that are in conflict. Jati is a Kshatriya. Kshatriya's work is to fight. Kshatriya's dharma is to fight, to protect the weak, to protect people from harm. Kshatriya, the word is made up of two parts, Kshata and Trayate. Kshata means harm and Trayate means to protect from or to relieve. So the Kshatriya always protects the other sections of society, and especially the weaker people, from any harm. And for that, the Kshatriya may need to use violence. So therefore, the question of fighting comes in, and that's how all the Kshatriyas are trained to be warriors. So Arjun's Jati Dharma is to fight, but his Kula Dharma is to protect his relatives, is to protect his dynasty, is to protect society. And he's saying, you're telling me to fight and kill everybody, then this will happen, that will happen, women will be widowed, my grandfather will be killed, I have to kill my teacher, this and that. So he's totally confused. It's very understandable. He's totally confused. And so Krishna tells him in 442 that armed with knowledge, stand up and fight. So Krishna is telling him to fight. But Krishna is also telling him that first you get knowledge. And Arjun thinks that he can get knowledge if he doesn't fight. Arjun thinks he will become knowledgeable, he will become a yogi if he doesn't fight. So now he's having a hard time reconciling that, Krishna, how are you telling me to fight also and to become knowledgeable also? The two don't go together. I thought it is either or. Either you fight or you become renounced and knowledgeable. But you're telling me to do both. So that's why then Arjun says, now can you please tell me, kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? And so Krishna will give him a third option, which is Arjun thought his two options were either fight or renounce everything and not fight and get knowledge that way, spiritual knowledge, transcendental knowledge. And Krishna is going to give him a third suggestion, which he hadn't even thought of, which is you fight also and you get knowledge also. So this chapter will be dedicated to how that is possible. And Krishna will very nicely explain it to him, how it is entirely possible. So moving on from the question which was asked in the first text, and of course, the words, look at the interesting words that were used. First word that that Arjun uses is sannyasam, renunciation. Now, he says, first you're telling me to be renounced, to be a sannyasi. He doesn't realize, and what Krishna will explain, is that to be renounced is not simply achieved by just stopping working. The real renunciation is disengaging the mind, not disengaging your hands and legs. In other words, Krishna is saying, Arjun, engage your hands and legs, hold the bow, shoot the arrow, that's fine. But disengage your mind from material attachment. That is sannyas. Just sitting in a cave and meditating is not the true meaning of sannyas. The real meaning of sannyas is you disengage your mind from material attachment, and at the same time you fight. So that this point will be expanded upon through the course of the chapter. So when Arjuna asked this question, Krishna says in text 2, the personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. So work in devotion is better than renunciation of work. So I'm just going to set the stage for our future discussions, because there are lots and lots of information that is coming. So verses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, verses 1 through 6 of this chapter, those 6 verses will deal with Nishkam Karma Yoga. That is working for the pleasure of the Lord, not with attachment. So Nishkam Karma Yoga. And then how to perform that Nishkam Karma Yoga, that will come in the future verses 7 through 12. So there's just a little bit of summarization of this chapter in terms of what is coming. And then in verses 13 through 16, Krishna will explain a very important concept, that how karma is actually performed. Who is the doer? Who is the doer? Is it me? Is it the Lord? Is it the modes of nature? Who is the actual performer of activity? So when we go into all of that, then Krishna's answer or recommendation to Arjun, that work, but work in devotion and work in knowledge, that will become clear. So let's just see how this theme is building up, how Krishna is building this theme. In chapter 1, Arjun said, I will not fight. It is very distressful. I have to fight with my relatives, and I am a Kshatriya. My Kula Dharma is to protect society, and you're telling me to disrupt society by killing all these important and respected people. So Krishna says in chapter 2 that if you don't do your karma, then you will incur sin. Why I'm going through all this is because Arjun has asked this question here, that Krishna, you're telling me to fight and you're telling me to be renounced. Now definitely tell me of the two which is better. And so I'm just building up why none of the two is the option Krishna will give. He'll actually give option number 3. So in chapter 2, Krishna said, Arjun, if you don't perform your duty, you will incur sin. Not that if you stop doing your duty, you will be free from sin. If you don't do your duty, you will actually, then you will be incurring sin. Which was opposite of what Arjun was thinking. Arjun was thinking, if I don't fight, no sin. Krishna is saying, if you don't fight, then you will commit sin. So Arjun's totally confused. Then in 3rd chapter, Arjun says, well, should I follow karma or should I follow gyan? It's the same thing that we are hearing in chapter 5, karma or gyan. Because Arjun thinks that if he performs karma, he will be entangled. But if he doesn't perform karma, then he'll get gyan. He'll be renounced. He'll be a yogi. He'll be knowledgeable. So then Krishna says that first, if you perform your duties as recommended by the scriptures, then you become purified. And then when you're purified, then you can take up sannyas and all that. But not at the early stage where you are not purified. Because then you will be called mithyachara. Then you will be called just a pretender. So in chapter 4, then gradually Krishna builds up and says that work with detachment results in jnana. Detachment from the results. Work with detachment from the results leads to development of jnana. Again, Krishna is not saying that either you work or you sit down and acquire jnana. No, Krishna is saying work with detachment will lead to jnana. Which jnana? Jnana about who you are, who is God, how can you serve God through the combination of working with the knowledge that I am supposed to work for Krishna's pleasure. So work in devotional service, in other words. So then here now, Krishna in text 2 starts introducing the concept of Nishkam Karma. He says, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Yes, Mr. Sanku.
So Prabhu, if you consider this verse, it says renunciation. Let's take about the renunciation. Renunciation of work is also good for liberation, right? So renunciation of work means basically giving up working. Okay, renunciation of work means. So if you look at the chapter 2, giving up work means you'll incur sin. Okay, here he says giving up work is also good for liberation. There he says giving up work, you'll incur sin.
Sin.
Yes. So it is contradictory.
if you see, so in the purport, good point and good question and good clarification to ask, Prabhu. In the purport, Prabhupada explains that. And he stresses, you see, when Krishna is saying the renunciation of work, he means renunciation of fruitive activities meant for gratifying our senses. So renunciation of just fruitive work, which is meant only to gratify our senses, that should be given up. Like I was using that example of smoking, you know, that's an activity. The person is engaging in that activity because he thinks he'll be happy. He thinks he'll be happy, so he engages in that activity, but actually that activity is binding him. So that's the kind of activity that Krishna is saying you should give up. That's why he recommends in 442, Arjun, work with knowledge. So that's a recommendation for all of us. We have to work. But what work should we perform and what work should we not perform? That's the key. If we understand what we should perform and what we should not perform, then we are in a very safe spot.
So here then renunciation of work with knowledge is good for liberation.
Yes. Yes.
So in
Because
second chapter, he didn't have the knowledge. So their renunciation of work leads to sinful act.
Because there Krishna was saying that Arjun, just don't think that by not performing your prescribed duty of a Kshatriya, you will be free from sin. Or Arjun, don't think that performing your prescribed duty of a Kshatriya will cause you to commit sin. Arjun was afraid of committing sin by killing his relatives. And so Krishna was saying, no, you will not incur any sin there. And here he is saying that if you act according to my direction, then there's nothing to fear. So it's actually the same thing that he said in chapter 2 that he's saying over here.
Okay, nice. Thank you, Prabhu.
You're welcome, Prabhu.
Prabhu.
Anybody? Yes, Madhuri.
Thank you, Prabhu. Well, it is like a paradoxical thing, right? It's contradicting the same thing. The thing is, in order to survive, sometimes we have to work, but we cannot work in a gambling house or wine shop or anything. Whatever we do, it should be conducive to our Krishna consciousness. Anything that it is favorable to our Krishna consciousness, we take up the job and dedicate the job to Krishna. We don't worry about how much we are making, we are getting promotion or anything. We just do the job and then keep improving your, knowledge about Krishna, or, work towards a transcendental knowledge. So then it is okay, right?
Yes, exactly.
Because everything, everywhere, it's always paradoxical, right? Life
Yes.
is a lot of times paradox, filled with the paradox. Anything we
Yes.
read, one time
Yes.
you see this, and then one time it is say. But at the beginning, maybe we will be so confused. Why is he saying this to us? I guess when you keep thinking in a much more deeper fashion, then probably it will bring some solution, right?
Yes, if you always keep at the back of your mind that working in devotion for Krishna is always good, then that helps answer all of these different types of questions that come up. So you said something very important, Madhuri, that you see, we all have to perform our jobs because we have, financial needs, and so there are these needs. We all have to pay our bills and so forth. But we don't perform actions which are not recommended, like working in a slaughterhouse or, things that are clearly not recommended, because that may provide us income, but it's not coming in a manner that is approved by the Shastras.
Thank you.
Anybody
Thank
else?
you.
Any other? Because there's a lot of material. So if there are any questions or doubts along the way, just please feel free to raise your hand, ask questions.
As a host, I don't have an option of raising the hand other than physically raising. Not in Zoom. I don't see that. For host, I don't think he can raise.
Prabhu, I have a question.
Jai
Follow-up question on what Mukta Shranga Prabhu asked. Renunciation of work with knowledge. That means like acting in Krishna consciousness. Is that correct, Prabhu? If that is the case, it is equivalent to work in devotion. So what is the exact difference between renunciation of work with knowledge and action in Krishna, action and work in devotion?
So, and when you say renunciation of work, you're talking about what Krishna says in text 2, right? Of chapter.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. So renunciation of work, he's saying again, like we discussed here, work which is not authorized or recommended by scriptures, like working in a slaughterhouse, for example. Krishna is saying that might give you income, and with that money you can buy so many things that you think will make you happy, right? But he says that's not the recommended work. So renounce that kind of work, unapproved work, also called vikarma. He says renounce that vikarma. But if you act in devotion, you act for Krishna's pleasure, for his service, then you're on the safe path. Let me actually expand upon this, since both you and Mukta Sangha Prabhu have asked a question. I'm sure others have the same thought as well. You see, whatever action we perform, typically we perform it out of a sense of wanting happiness. We say, okay, if I do like this, I'll be happy. If I do like that, I'll be happy, right? Nobody starts the day saying, okay, how can I make myself unhappy today? Everybody says, how can I make myself happy today, right? So when you look at yourself or others, you'll see that our understanding of what makes us happy keeps changing as we go through life. When you see a little child, 2, 3, 4-year-old child, their sense of happiness comes from playing with toys. You know, kids have little toys, they're very happy. They'll keep playing with them. As they grow up, the toys that they want may change. They become more expensive. These days you have all these motorized toys and things like that, you know. But the idea is that kids feel happy when they have toys to play with. As we grow up, we find that, okay, now something else will make me happy. Then you have other aspirations and goals and say, okay, I'll do this and I'll be happy. Eventually, everybody agrees on one point that, okay, if I have a certain amount of money, I'll be happy. But how to earn that money then becomes a question. And so many people do so many things to earn money. Everybody is doing things to earn money because they think that that money will make them happy. But according to societal laws only, we can see that society itself approves of certain jobs and doesn't approve of other jobs. Somebody's business might be to steal money from others. There are hackers, there are thieves, bank robbers, whatever. That guy is also doing his work. He thinks I am an entrepreneur. This is my line of work. This interests me. But society says, no, this is not approved. So similarly, as we grow even more, as we grow spiritually, we realize that there are things that we can do and things that we cannot do, which make us spiritually happy. And the spiritual happiness is the real happiness, the lasting happiness. So then our concept of happiness becomes spiritual happiness. And working in devotion for Krishna is what gives us that spiritual happiness. So that is why that is being stressed here. And what Krishna is saying here is that fruitive activities or seeking sense gratification are cause for material bondage. So these actions, these fruitive actions that only are designed to somehow or the other give us, make our senses happy, those activities should be given up. I hope that makes sense, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. So in other words, like, can I say renunciation of the results rather than the renunciation of work? Will that be the correct understanding, or even?
Well, renunciation of results is a different topic.
Okay, okay.
Because so here we are talking about renunciation of work itself. And so the what kind of work should be renounced? Krishna is saying work that leads to sinful reactions.
Vikarma.
Vikarma.
Okay.
And it's so interesting that in this case, Arjun thought that fighting in the battle would be vikarma because he would be killing his relatives. And Krishna is saying actually not fighting in the battle would be vikarma. So this is a very unique circumstance. Otherwise, what is vikarma? It's relatively easy to understand. Like in our example of working in a slaughterhouse, it's very easy. There is no confusion. Although some people who work there will disagree with you and me, but in our mind, it's quite clear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. This is fine for now. Yeah.
Okay, Prabhu. Welcome. Ram Sham Prabhu, you had a hand raised.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. So in that purport, I see that like Prabhupada mentioned about that Srila Rupa Goswami giving the detail about the renunciation.
Yeah.
So he said like the renunciation of work is that like that is the Falgu Vairagya, that is the
Right.
incomplete renunciation, because in that that he's thinking about the material with the desire of liberations. So he is entangled with the material, but just he is renunciating, thinking that for the desire of liberation. Whereas work in devotional service, which is better than renunciation of work. So work in devotional service, Srila Rupa Goswami ji explaining like that is the Yukta Vairagya. So that is the renunciation. Why and how it is complete renunciation? Because this is Yukta Vairagya, and that is in Yukta Vairagya renunciation, he is thinking everything belongs to Lord. That's what I am renouncing. And second, he's thinking use everything for his service. That's why I'm not keeping myself. I'm renouncing in service of Lord. And third, he is not claiming himself as a proprietorship, that I am the owner of that. So Krishna is the owner of that. That's what I no need to keep with me. That's what I am renunciating. So work in devotional service is the Yukta Vairagya, and that renunciation of the work is the Falgu Vairagya, as per the Srila Rupa Goswami. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji, exactly. Thank you for bringing that up, because that verse is there in the purport where Prabhupada explains this. I'll just summarize for everybody's benefit that the thing that helps us understand all of this is that one, if we recognize that everything belongs to Krishna, everything meaning my body, my mind, my intelligence, my possessions, my house, my this, my that, everything belongs to Krishna. So if I use it in Krishna's service, then I'm using it the right way. If I don't, then it's going to create trouble for me. And so Rupa Goswami makes the point that if a person understands that everything belongs to Krishna, then, then where is the question of renouncing anything? When nothing belongs to you, what will you renounce? You can only renounce what you own. But the mature and advanced understanding of the devotee is that, hey, nothing belongs to me. So renunciation is easy. I don't own anything. Everything belongs to Krishna. I just have to use it in Krishna's service. And then that first verse from the Bhagavatam, which is mentioned in this purport, is very, very good, very nice verse actually. Nunam pramatha kurute vikarma yadindriya priyata apnoti na sadhu manye yato atmanoyam asan api klesha asadeha. So nunam pramatha kurute vikarma. Vikarma, a person is performing vikarma or sinful activity. Why? Nunam pramatha. He's become mad. Pramatha means person becomes mad. How does a person become mad? Yad indriya priyata yad indriya pritaya apranoti. Indriya, senses. What is dear to the senses is called indriya priyata. And he thinks that if something will satisfy my senses, it'll make me happy. Like we were talking about the example of a person smoking. Why does a person smoke? Because it's very nice. It makes me look very cool, or it's very, like whatever. So you're satisfying your senses. And the senses we had discussed, they are like horses. They will run here and there, left, right, under the influence of the modes of nature. But if they are not channelized, it leads to a very confusing state of mind for the person who is actually the owner of the chariot which the horses are driving. So, yan indriya prita apranoti. So if one just does what the senses tell you to do, then you will perform vikarma and nunam pramatha. You will practically become mad. Mad after sense gratification. I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. So we become mad after sense gratification. And then nasadu manne yato atmano ayam, that this is not good. Nasadu manne, this is not good. Why? Asan api klesha, klesha the asa deha. Deha means body, material body. Klesha means gives trouble. So asan api klesha the asa deha. That this type of behavior, just doing what the senses want you to do, gives your body a lot of misery. Asanapi klesha asadeha. And how does it give us misery? The person who's smoking say, I'm not feeling miserable. Or people who are drinking lots of alcohol, they say, I'm very happy. Once I get 5-6 drinks inside me, then I don't have any worries left. I'm very happy. Right? But Krishna says that this actually leads to a lot of misery because it brings you repeatedly into the cycle of birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. So again and again and again, we have to go through this misery of birth, misery of disease, misery of old age, misery of death. One cycle finishes, another one starts. Second birth finishes, third one starts. And depending upon the type of activities a person performs, there's no guarantee that they'll get a human birth. They could fall into animal life also. So see, all these, this is why this verse is very, very instructive. Nunan pramatta kurute vikarma. So Krishna is saying, control your senses. Yadindriya pritaya apranoti. Don't be a servant of your senses. You have to be master of senses. That is yoga. A person who can control their senses is a yogi. And Krishna tells Arjun, be a yogi. Arjun says, okay, I'll be a yogi. That means I should sit in the forest and not engage my senses. Krishna says, no, you have to engage your senses. But engage them in my service, then you'll be a yogi. So see, there's some very, very important concepts coming out of this discussion. All right. Another hand raised, Sojanya Mataji.
Ashok
Hey,
Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhuji. Yeah, I'm using this. Prabhuji is using the other one. Prabhuji.
Oh.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Go ahead, Mataji.
Yeah, you can hear me. Okay. So Prabhuji, like, it was really very nice discussion. So one thing I noticed, Prabhuji, the chapter 3 description in English is Karma Yoga, and chapter 5 description is Karma Yoga action in Krishna consciousness. So that relates to what you said. So I just want to confirm if my understanding and analysis is correct. So you said that in the first thing, that's in chapter 3, Krishna said you renounce the work. I don't know, chapter 2 or 3, like Mukta Sangha Prabhu brought up that. But then he's further clarifying here that when we say renounce from work, is renounce from working, from doing against Krishna consciousness. So
Yeah,
instead,
renouncing sinful activities.
So it's not completely renouncing from the work.
Correct. Correct. It is renouncing certain type of work.
Okay. So it's not like, oh, I'm doing my work, but I leave the results for Krishna. That renunciation is different. But here, first step is, first you need to know at least what should we do? What is that work that we have to do? And that is what Krishna is further clarifying here.
Yes. And actually this renouncing of results, since Jagnesh Prabhu had brought up also, we may as well just add it here. You see, so two levels, these are two different topics. So first level is what work I should do and what work I should not do. Then when we know what work I should not do, and I start performing the work that I should do, even then there will be some results, right? Even though the work that I'm performing is recommended, there'll be some results. And so Krishna, then the second level is, he says, that even when you perform work that you should perform, you use the results for my service, not for your sense gratification. Otherwise, again, you'll get trapped by the snare of Maya, because the senses, if they are engaged in just simply satisfying themselves, even though the work is correct, but you're not, but if you're very attached to the fruits of the result, that, oh, I'll do this work and then I'll get this much money, that much money, this money, and then I'll do this, then I'll do this. You see, you can get very trapped by it.
Easily entangled.
Attached and trapped. So that's why Krishna says, you now leave the result to me. What I give you, what I don't give you, you leave it to me. So that's the second topic or the second level. But first level is what work should be done, what work should not be done.
So now the chapter 3 and chapter 5, I think that is why intentionally that is how the title of the chapter is given that way. Am I right, Prabhuji, to say that?
Right, Madhuri.
Okay. Because the way Krishna is connecting is chapter 3, first you have to do the action. That is to clarify to Arjuna that you can't just say like, I don't want to do my work. No, you have to do. And then in chapter 4, he's saying that in order to know what to work or what not to work, you need to have knowledge. And that's why in chapter 4, he's giving knowledge. And then now he's saying, now that because you have the knowledge, now in chapter 5, he's saying you have to work in, you said two sentences, devotion with knowledge, or devotion, sorry, work with, I forgot.
Work in devotional service is better than
work in devotional service. That you get to know because of the knowledge you arrived in chapter 4.
Correct.
And Krishna emphasized that knowledge part in chapter 4 because he knows that that's how you can get connected to the right action in chapter 5.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
Got it. Thank you, Prabhu.
You're welcome, Anand. And also in chapter 3, the focus was a little bit broader, also where Krishna explained, karma kand, then vikarma, akarma, nishkam karma. There were all these different types of karma which were explained. So, and then he goes a lot into the details of karma kand and how that helps one gradually advance further and further spiritually.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
You're welcome, Mother.
Because every time when we are hearing lectures, even Bhakti Shastri, when they say connection, 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 yes, for that moment we understand, I mean, at least me, and then it goes above the head. So that's why this is helpful. And I mean, at least we really like the way you explain to up to our level, my level. Thank you.
We are all at a very basic level, Mataji. We are all trying to understand the basics. So thank you so much for your question, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
All right, I didn't realize it's already 9 o'clock. So anyway, more questions, comments, thoughts? Actually, the first two verses itself, just introducing the topic itself, raises a lot of points and questions. So it's good that there was an opportunity for discussion.
I think this
Yes,
chapter,
Prabhuji.
this chapter will go for long.
And that's why I asked just to give a brief overall of chapter 4, because every time when I think, okay, what happened in chapter 1, what happened in chapter 2, hearing is different from you tell yourself how you understand. That helps.
Right.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thanks again.
Sure, you're welcome.
Even though this chapter has only 29 verses, but I think we'll dive deeper into it.
Yeah. I mean, 1st to 6 will be all about Nishkam Karma. As we've seen now in text 2, Krishna started introducing that concept of working with devotion, and then so we'll get more into it. So
Prabhu, I have
So
another.
Mukta Singha Prabhu asks, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mataji.
Oh, it's okay. You want me to go first? Okay.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, thank you. Prabhu, you know what? At the beginning, when we were working, when we are not aware of a lot of things about Bhagavad Gita, we didn't really think that deeply about our work. What kind of work I am choosing? I guess because it was bringing more money or something. Okay, we always decided to go along with plan of having more money. I mean, we are not going to go and work in a slaughterhouse or any other illegally placed, houses or other areas. But still, there are certain areas, gray areas we could have chosen. But at that time, maybe we don't have any understanding of Bhagavad Gita. So we will choose because it is bringing a little bit more extra money so that we can afford to do certain things for the house.
sure.
So we're choosing that. But now, after years of doing and listening and all that, I think we pause for a second and say, do you really want to focus on getting that money? Or what is it that you really want to get out of your life? So we think, we rethink ourselves, ponder ourselves a little bit more, and then come up with, some kind of solution. Say, okay, maybe this is not a good idea. Even though, biological work, we may have to torture the animals, give injections and something in research area. But sometimes we say, do I really have to do all that? Can I get away from that? Because it was bringing good money for the summer, but I used to wonder, why are you injecting all these animals? And then we are seeing the animals, even though they are little creatures, we are letting them die, by injecting something on that. Is it a good thing for me to do? But thank God, then I switched the profession. I don't do that kind of injection. But I think during the course of our life, we have some kind of a little bit more positive experience. We think better and come up with a solution to our problems. This is the thing that we must do. Can we choose something that is favorable to Krishna consciousness, right?
Right.
Anything to do with the devotional activity. So I think,
Exactly.
the experience does help us a little bit more on the reading or knowledge that we acquire. Like Krishna says, acquire knowledge and put towards that into transcendental activities or activities that will please Krishna, right?
That's exactly right, Mataji. And you know, there's no substitute for time and experience. And it's over time that one's concept of what gives us happiness or what will give us happiness, that kind of changes. And so, and you just gave an example of that. So thank you so much for sharing that, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
So Narasimhan Prabhu, you had your hand raised for a second.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for explaining. It was very nice to hear. Prabhuji, just some thoughts. I was, when you were explaining that, how it is always best to ask for guidance from, look for guidance in the Gita or consult with the Vaishnavas, because the mind might be covered, may
Right.
not be able to know what is it that is pleasing to the Lord and devotees. And then Prabhuji, I think that there was an example which may be relevant, was about the renunciation of work and whether one should renounce altogether everything, was Ambrish Maharaj and the pastime of Durvasa Muni. And how externally, even though Ambrish Maharaj was, he may be so, so many responsibilities as a king, but he was always fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna. Just wanted to share that with you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And thank you so much, Prabhu. That's a great example of a person who is, pure devotee of the Lord. So again, like Krishna is telling Arjun, perform your duty. And Amrish Maharaj was a king. He was performing his duties. But he was totally dependent on Krishna. He left the results of everything to Krishna, so much so that when Durvasa Muni was angry at him and wanted to even take his life, Amrish Maharaj did not resist, and he said, okay, if this is the will of Krishna, then it's fine with me. And then Krishna basically sent the Sudarshan Chakra to protect him. So that's the level of a pure devotee. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mr. Prabhu.
Thank you.
I think we are good.
All right, Prabhuji. Yeah, I think we'll stop here then.
Very much, very interesting topic. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for more details. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. And before I let everyone go, I have some very important announcements. Is that okay, Prabhu? Quickly.
Yes, Prabhu.
So today is our beloved devotee Ramsham Prabhu's appearance day.
Oh,
Hare Krishna. Happy birthday to you.
It's his birthday. So let's all pray to their lordships to bestow all.
Prabhuji, we couldn't hear.
You couldn't hear?
No,
Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
your voice became blank.
So today is our beloved Ramsham Prabhu's appearance day, birthday.
Oh, very good.
So
Very
let's all
We
pray
wish
to
you
the
a very
lordship,
happy.
to bestow all his mercy upon Ramsham Prabhu and his family for his devotion. They are
nice.
extremely dedicated family, and it's all under the guidance of Ramsham Prabhu. So, so let's all chant loudly, one round of Mahamantra
okay.
for their benefit. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
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 Hare Hare,
Hare Hare.
Hare
Ram,
Hare
Hare
Ram,
Ram,
Ram
Ram
Ram,
Ram,
Hare
Hare Hare.
All the blessings. All the blessings of Shri Radha Sharad Bihar.
Thank you, Ramsham Prabhu, for your continuous support. You are really inspiring all of us. So
Thank you so
wonderful,
very much.
and may all the good things come to you and your family.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, Prabhuji, Mataji, for your kind.
Blessings.
Yeah. So thank you so very much. Keep us blessing and keep us, in your association, so that we should get the chance and opportunity to serve Vaishnavas. Thank you so very much.
Well, we're very, very happy Krishna conscious birthday to you, Ramsham Prabhu. You're a source of great inspiration for all of us, and you and your whole family, you all are such sincere and dedicated devotees. So it's very inspiring for all of us, and we're very thankful for your association. And we hope and pray that may you all prosper more and more in your Krishna consciousness and bhakti, and keep inspiring all of us and whoever else you meet too.
Thank you so very much.
Lucky to have,
Blessings,
we are
Prabhuji.
very lucky to have your association too.
Yes.
Very nice.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Keep up your good work.
Very
Thank you.
inspiring. Entire family, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for all your wishes. So, and tomorrow, Prabhu, just an information, Ajit Krishna Prabhu, we all are going to Gita Nagari tomorrow. Most of us here, we are going to Gita Nagari for Rath Yatra.
Very nice.
And
Very
the
nice.
beauty of Gita Nagari Rath Yatra is it's a countryside Rath Yatra. So it happens that Lordship will go up the hill and then come down the hill. So it's very nice. And Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, they are our Philadelphia deities, will be carried on there. So that's very interesting. So most of our Philadelphia congregation will be going there, including many of us here in the chat.
Well, if I can request you to please offer obeisances from our side as well to Jagannath Baladev Subhadra there.
Yeah, sure, Prabhu, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Janmashtami is fast approaching. So in ISKCON Philadelphia, there is a drama practice going on.
Very nice.
Or onward. So if anybody who has not participated or who is not in the list of participants who are interested to do an act in the drama, please contact me. So we can assign you some roles. Very interesting. Thank you again for joining.
Prabhuji, do you need
Thank you.
tips? Like, I'll be contacted.
Patitanam
Vaibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
Thank you,
Jai
everybody.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hey,
very much.
Hari
Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Prabhu ki jai. Ram
Hare
Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Hari
Jai. Hare Bol.